Welcome, everyone. I'm Lori from Kale. We're so glad you've joined us for this session, Insights into Prior Learning Assessment and Recognition. Before we get started, I'd just like to share a few quick housekeeping tips. Attendees are muted, but please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box. And with that, I'd like to welcome Susan Fursell and Michaela Overton from Thompson Rivers University to begin the presentation.
Thank you very much. Michaela and I have really been looking forward to sharing some of this research we've been doing on what are some of the factors that impact PLAR persistence. So this is research Michaela and I have been doing since 2018. And then 2 years ago, one of our PLAR assessors, he was new at the time, named Ian Pardo. He's also a statistician, joined us in this research. And he was, of course, unable to join us today, but we'd like to also recognize his contribution to this work. So as mentioned, if you could introduce yourselves in the chat, that would be excellent. At the end of the session, we will also visit the questions and answers if you have any, but we'll both be keeping an eye on the chat and the Q&A. So next, we're just going to do territorial land acknowledgement. Now, territorial land acknowledgements in Canada, you don't start a meeting, you don't start a presentation, a gathering of some sort, or sometimes even you don't start a hockey game without showing your recognition of and respect for the Indigenous peoples. So today we are honored, Michaela and I both come from Kamloops to Shawetmik, where we live, work, play, and learn on the unceded territory of the Kamloops people. And in particular, I wanted just to share the screen on the right. We've adopted the First Peoples Principles of Learning, and these are philosophies that we adhere to and strongly support in our prior learning program. And just 3 of these 9 philosophies I wanted to point out that are particularly impactful. So the first is that learning is holistic, reflective, experiential, and relational. And if that doesn't describe what prior learning assessment is, or PLAR as we call it in Canada, CPL as many call it here, that's a really important consideration for us. As well, learning is embedded in memory, history, and story. And as we all know, with the transformational nature that many students experience when they go through PLAR, learning also requires exploration of one's identity, both their personal and professional identities. So with that, I'd like to proceed to the agenda and what we're going to cover today. Today, we're going to cover what and where is TRU, just to give you that physical look of where we are geographically located, why we've done this research, what were some of our research goals and the methodology we used, followed by findings when we first started this research in 2018, what we did with this research, so what the students shared with us was working and what wasn't working, and what we did to adapt. Then we ran the survey methodology again in 2023, and we'll share what we found in the comparisons and where that's leading us to next steps and final words. And yeah, so we'll just take it off to the next one.
Okay, so a little bit about us. Thompson Rivers University, or TRU, is located on the west side of Canada in Kamloops, British Columbia. TRU awards over 70% of PLAR credit in British Columbia. And between 2018 and now, our PLAR department has grown from 2.5 full-time roles to 16 full-time roles and will continue to expand as TRU further increases PLAR capacity, specifically looking at our relationships with employers. If you want, please take a moment to share where you're from. You can go to menti.com and enter the code at the top, or you can follow the QR code on the right. I'll leave just a little time for this.
And I can see just while people are going into Mentimeter, and we'll use Mentimeter a few more times in this session. So we have a variety of people here. Amanda, I do have to say hi from Canada, also the University of the Fraser Valley. We have people representing different states in the United States, Athabasca University also in Canada, in Alberta. And so welcome everybody. Also, I neglected to introduce Michaela a little bit more fulsomely. So, Michaela is one of our PLAR advisors, and Michaela and I have had the opportunity to work together for many years now. She was a student when I was a career educator in one of the classes that I took or that I taught. And I tapped her on the shoulder asking if she would apply for a co op position, which she did. That led to another co op position and this research. And then we were thrilled to be able to hire her onto the team. So maybe, Michaela, we could go into the 4 TRU pathways.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are 4 pathways through which TRU students can petition for and potentially obtain PLAR credit. We have our competency-based portfolio, in which students demonstrate their broader learning background to petition for a block of elective credits. They speak to 8 competencies, which reflect TRU's institutional learning outcomes. And the credit award amount is determined by the number of competencies that the student demonstrates in their portfolio. And then we have our credit bank, which awards 60 to 65% of the PLAR credit awarded at TRU. Through the credit bank, we award credit for pre-assessed trading and certifications from selected employers, private and public post-secondary institutions. Our last 2 pathways are pathways through which students can petition for credit for specific courses. Our course-based portfolios, which can involve a variety of assessment methods such as projects, observation, interviews. The subject matter expert or assessor will determine the appropriate assessment method for each course. And then lastly, students have the opportunity to challenge certain courses via exams. And we're kind of curious what types of PLAR or credit for prior learning are offered at your institution. I'll give a bit of time if you'd like to share.
The reason that we're asking for this is we're going to customize some of our language around the support that you're providing in the prior learning space. As well, we also want to use similar vocabulary because I know even though we're neighbors, Canada and the United States, we sometimes have a little bit of different vocabulary, as well as we're always looking at new ways of doing things and improving our support and services, and to learn more about how others are doing it. So, to see the military there, standardized exams, internal assessments, joint service transcripts. CBE, I'm guessing that's competency-based education, which we've heard a lot about at this session. Non-credit courses. Oh, geez, the list just keeps going on and on. I'm going to do a screenshot of this in a moment.
Yeah, I love to see this all together. It looks
Yeah.
like military and portfolio are the most common.
I just did a screenshot for later. Yeah.
Okay, I'll move on to the next slide now.
Okay, so as I said, Michaela and I have been doing research since 2018 on students' PLAR persistence rates. And what happened in 2018 is anecdotally, it felt like a lot of the students that first point of contact with us were exploring PLAR, but not very many were completing it. And so we did a little bit of research to get some qualitative data on this. And we found that about 77% of students, that very first point of contact, or as I've called it, kind of kicking the tires, what is PLAR? Is this something I might want to pursue? How can it benefit me? From that very first point of contact, full through to completion, they didn't complete it. So we were wondering, what was it? What were the variables? What were the factors that impacted those persistence rates? And so we designed a research methodology to help us explore this. And we thought that if we could better understand the factors that positively and negatively impact the completion weights, we could use this information to enhance our services, our tools, our systems, our processes, and even our policies. And about the same time, we also initiated research on very similar to the PLA boost that Kale and do you pronounce it Witchy did, WICHE? And we knew that PLAR was increasing. Students that participated in PLAR, their GPA were increased, completion rates were increased, and access for rural and Indigenous students was increased. But we needed more information. And so we designed surveys, but we looked at things like what were their expectations at the beginning? How did those shift or change? Reasons for pursuing PLAR, what was their PLAR experience? So, how did they rate the services and the resources they had access to? Um, were there changes in engagement throughout their process, or changes in their purpose or their perceived benefit of taking PLAR? So, we really just wanted to get a better understanding of students' thoughts on PLAR. So this led us to designing a research initiative, and I'm a big fan of the mixed methods approach, where you combine qualitative and quantitative data. So the quantitative was a survey, and in 2018, we developed a survey with 31 questions and sent it to students that had completed PLAR in the last 5, 6, not, sorry, let me rephrase that. We sent it to students that had initiated contact with PLAR in the last 5 or 6 years. We didn't want those that had just completed it, but a really wide range because of what we were exploring. And we followed this up with interviews. And what we did was, once we got the initial survey results, and as you can see on this slide, we had 176 students complete this survey. We then used the responses and we started to analyze it. What were some of the curiosities we still had? What did we still want to know? What did we still want to explore? And that's how we designed the interview questions. So we use semi-structured interviews to delve into those topics a little bit more. And I will admit, whenever you use a mixed methods research methodology, it adds a level of complexity, but it also enhances the rigor and the reliability of the findings. And the the analysis is a much more richer picture. And that's what we did in 2018. And in case you're curious about this, because we designed the surveys from scratch, because it was just me and Michaela doing this work with a lot of other responsibilities, even the interviews, the doing the interviews, we transcribed them word for word. I shouldn't say we, Michaela did that. And then we had to code it and analyze it. So it took us about a year to do this project from beginning to end. And it was much easier the second time. So I'll go into some of those initial findings in 2018. So what we found when we did that initial analysis of those 31 questions and what was it, 176 responses, was we asked a question, well, a variety of questions, but why do students pursue PLAR? And three answers surfaced to the top. Not the three I thought that there would be, but three that were important for us to understand. So, a cost effective way to get credit, that shouldn't surprise anyone. We were expecting that. But it was the personal goals that surprised me, and how much higher this was in relation to the others. So reasons personal goals people described as, I was started my degree maybe in my late teens or early 20s, but I wasn't able to complete it. Or I've since become a parent or a grandparent, and I wanted to be a really good role model for them. So the personal reasons had to do with their sense of self-worth. And that was a really interesting finding to explore. And then the third one, why they were pursuing PLAR, was one I thought would be quite a bit higher. So to improve their career options, and 74% of participants said they wanted to go through PLAR to improve their career options. Now, I thought this would be higher because my current research interest, and I'm just finishing up my PhD on this topic, is how PLAR impacts career development. And so maybe I was just a little bit egocentric in thinking this would have a bigger impact. Um, but nonetheless, it wasn't as high as the other two, and that was good to know. Then in those 31 questions for that 2008 survey, and we've combined some of the analysis with the 14 interviews, here's in rank order what the participants said impacted their completion rates or their engagement with PLAR or their persistence. So the highest pattern that we noted was that there was no guarantee of credits. So when Michaela was going through the different PLAR options, the one option, if we pre-assessed a training program that you took in another institution or through private training or through professional development in your organization, and you can demonstrate to us that you've done that training in the contract or the articulated agreement that we've set. The credit guarantee for that is pretty firm. So you see what you get. It's all laid out in our website quite clearly. But for the students taking the other passes, they weren't really sure that lack of credit guarantee. So as they described it to us, we're going to invest our money, we're going to invest our time, we're going to invest our hopes and do this work. And we're not guaranteed we're going to get any credit. And that really didn't sit well with many of the participants that did this. Others talked about time commitment. And as we've heard throughout this conference, and as we know, because most of us are practitioners or researchers in this space, we're working with post-traditional students. They're busy. They're working often full-time. They have childcare or family care responsibilities. And many of our students also volunteer extensively. So the time commitment, the cognitive commitment was something they were worried about and what caused them to stop in the PLAR process. Many felt that the process was too lengthy, and we heard over and over again, it might just be easier to take the course or the courses. And correlated with that, the work is too high. And that makes complete sense. PLAR is such a unique entity. When you say you're going to university and you're taking these courses, there's a good chance you're going to find other people that have gone to university taking these courses. They can give you advice and guidance and give you an understanding of what to expect. But PLAR, most people don't know anyone else in our school that's done it. So, it's not just learning the work, but it feels like there's a lot to do. And then we're moving into some of the confidence. They're worried they don't have enough experience or that it's university credit worthy. And they're worried that they can't articulate that learning through their evidence. So this impact on the completion illuminated 4 areas. So they were confused about our processes. They didn't have confidence that their lived learning was going to be able to, it wasn't worthy of university credit. There was no guarantee of credit. And one thing that came out more in the interviews was that the students felt quite lonely. So in the research, we also asked more support could we be providing, and how could we get more certainty in the credit award before beginning PLAR? So this next slide here is an excellent metaphor that one of the students that we interviewed shared with us. And, metaphors, there's a reason that we like to go back to them. They evoke that knowledge and that understanding that simple words can't always deliver. And she was explaining that when going through PLAR, it felt like she was getting into a boat. And we took her to the edge of the dock. We gave her what we thought she needed, and then we pushed the boat out into the water and let her go on her way. And so she said, it's like coming, PLAR is like coming to this dock. They give you everything and then they kind of push you out. And that is where I am right now. So I have to navigate my way back to port. So what she explained in that interview was she didn't have a compass. She was really confused. She was uncertain of where she was going, how she was going to get there. And again, that feeling of being lonely, because up to this point, PLAR has been a very self-directed process. And we support students and we help students, but it's not like they're going through a course or a cohort experience. And so what did we do? We took this information and we worked really, really hard to improve our services, to improve our resources, to initiate projects for more directed support, and to adjust what we were doing. So taking this evidence and making evidence-based decisions. So over the next few years, and we were a very small team at this point. We were myself and 2.5 PLAR advisors. So I'm so sorry to that team that we made them do all this work. But what we did was the handbook that we'd had, like for example, for competency-based PLAR, we took it from 12 pages to 74 pages, and we walked them through the entire process. And we had students comment on that enhanced handbook, calling it their Bible, and such a strong and rich resource for going through each of the sections of their portfolio and how to do it. We use Moodle as our learning management system. And in addition to the handbook, we put a lot of learning activities, information, graphics, templates, examples, redacted portfolios that students had submitted into our resources. We started to add videos, and we just thought really carefully about their confusion and what could we do to help them in this very self-directed journey. And while we were doing this, we were also doing a pilot project with TRU staff, QP staff. So those would be more of our junior staffs, the behind the people that are imperative in making sure that our programs run. So our unionized staff. And we did a face-to-face project, walking them through the competency-based PLAR process. And that really illuminated for us what was working, what resources we needed to develop and enhance further, and where they were getting stuck in some of our processes. So the whole time we're going through this, we're improving things. We also began doing indigenization and decolonization work. I have a session on that later today, so I'm not going to go into too much of that detail, but I do want to leave that what we've been learning with the decolonization work and from our Indigenous communities is surfacing learning. And for us, so it's funny, we're talking about surfacing learning, that we're weaving it into how we support students, and it's making our program much more flexible and much more customized to the individual students. We also, the feedback we got from the no credit guarantee, we took it upon ourselves to propose a 3-credit PLAR competency-based course that we had to get approval through our governance processes, which we achieved about 6 months ago. And we're just finishing building that course, and then it'll go into development. And courses, students can take a 3-credit course on how to do competency-based. So that's going to give them more direction, cohort students moving through. It's online, so it'll be accessible anywhere, and they'll be guaranteed credits when they go through that. And then we also took a lot of time. We communicate with students primarily through email, our website, and our Moodle pages. And so we took a lot of time to really review what we were communicating, how were we communicating it, and how do we develop standard responses that are fulsome and clear, and really helped get to some of those points in the 2018 research. And then just, I wanted to share that we also did a series of postcards with words of advice from PLAR alumni. So we reached out to PLAR alumni, asking them what advice would they have liked at the beginning of their PLAR journey. They sent us back responses. We handwrite it on postcards, and we sent it to current PLAR students. And we had one student say that it's such a value to have that. It really gave her words of encouragement. And she had that sitting beside her computer the whole time she was working on her portfolio, and that was what got her through, just that little bit of advice from another student. So that takes us to the 2023 research findings. And what we found there was we echoed the research 100% again. We wanted to ask the questions in the same way so that we can compare apples and apples. The only thing we did different with this survey was that we reduced the number of questions because some of them, the questions, we actually didn't dive into the data. So we didn't think we should waste people's time with those questions. So we did see some changes. So even more students were saying they pursued PLAR because it was a cost-effective way. And that makes sense with inflation rates, the cost of food going up, mortgage rates going up. Our dollars don't go as far. So this makes sense. And we've also been promoting it as a cost-effective way to gain credit. Personal goals, I thought we would see this go up because as we were doing this research, the pandemic was occurring and the impact on individuals was quite pronounced at times. But actually, personal goals went down 7%, and career options went up 3%. But it's that next piece that when I saw this, and Michaela, are you able to zoom into that impact on completion rates just to give the viewers a little deeper dive into it? Thank you. So what you see here is when I first started looking at that, I thought, oh my gosh, the dark lines are the 2008 research and the light lines are 2024. So we have a baseline. And I thought, we haven't seen as much improvement as I'd hoped, especially considering how much time and commitment we put into improving our resources. And so I wasn't too happy when I saw this. And then we started to dive into it, and it started to make quite a bit of sense. And I'm not going to go through this line by line, but there were some pieces that really stood out for me. So, for example, we didn't change our fees. That still was a concern for students. They were worried about not having enough evidence, more worried about it in 2024, 2023, 24. But that's interesting because we actually made the evidence that students supply more rigorous, and we asked them to explain why they're providing this evidence and how it supports their learning statements. Um, Guarantee credit, that makes sense as well. Lack of guarantee because we haven't introduced the course yet, and there is still no guarantee of credit. And then again, students that did the second survey, some of them were graduating or looking at PLAR in 2018, 19, 20, 2020. They haven't experienced many of the changes that we had been implementing. So then we asked, of course, what more could we do to support students? And you've probably heard enough of my voice, so I'm going to hand it over to Michaela now to share a deeper dive into some of those results that made me quite happy.
Okay. So as Susan has been sharing, after actioning the findings from 2018 survey, we re-administered the survey to a new batch of students and looking to discover what had changed in regards to student persistence and completion rates. On the top left, so these graphs are a little bit more of a deeper dive into specific questions that we asked in the survey. So on the top left, we see how students rated the helpfulness of certain information platforms in 2018 and in 2023. All three information platforms were rated as more helpful than not helpful both years, as they're above the dashed neutral zero line. Respondents found information shared via email the most helpful, and its overall level of helpfulness increased from 32% to 46% between 2018 and 2023. Website helpfulness is essentially unchanged from 2018, whereas information shared on Moodle scored only 5% in 2018 and increased to 19% in 2023, which tells us that we're going in the right direction. Seeing the significant increases in helpfulness of our learning management system Moodle and information shared via email shows us that the time we invested in improving these student resources was really worth it. You see that the reported helpfulness of the website barely moved, which aligns with the fact that we didn't update the website between 2018 and 2023. We have since updated the website in 2024, so we look forward to seeing if this reported helpfulness changes with our next survey. Looking at the bottom right graph now, we can see how far into the PLAR process students progressed. In 2018, shown in dark blue here, we can see that 77% of students were moving past the exploration stage. Only 14% of students in 2018 reported, oh, sorry, we can see that 77% of students weren't moving past the exploration stage. Only 14% of students in 2018 reported completing their PLAR. Then in 2023, represented in the lighter blue, students' completion rates more than doubled, with 36% of students submitting their PLAR. These students are getting past the exploration stage through development and submitting to actually receive their credit award. This was our most important finding between 2018 and 2023. Seeing that we had more than doubled completion rates lets us know that we're going in the right direction, even though there is more work to be done. And some of this more work, our next steps included updating the website, as I shared. We are delivering information sessions to students, and as well as the continued decolonization efforts, which will increase equity and remove barriers for all students. But we've left some time to ask for your thoughts. We'd love to hear your advice on next steps, or what next steps would you take or plan to take with your institution's credit for prior learning programs?
So there was a question to have the Menti code again. Can you see it on the screen, the Menti code or the QR code? I suspect yes, but yeah. So what we'd like you to do is maybe some suggestions on what you've done to increase your persistence rates, or what you would recommend we do next in the improvements that we've been doing. Thanks, Laurie, for letting us know you can see. We may not be getting responses there.
There we go.
So, pardon me, Michaela? Oh, here we go.
Should be
Okay.
able to see them now.
Yeah. So the one response, award credits for completion of the portfolio. Yes, that with the course there will be 3 credits. So hopefully that encourages the students that have taken the course, and they can get that credit guarantee. The course also looks at adult learning theory, the benefits of reflection. So there's other benefits to the course. In addition, the course, the students will complete the competency-based PLAR portfolio. Um, Surveying the state's community college, as it helps you find contacts and learn other successes, all of which helps build best practices. I so agree with that. To find those best practices, a handful of us coordinated a conference in Ireland last year. It was the 5th Validation of Prior Learning Biennale. It's an international conference. And we use the phrase there, when the tide rises, all boats float. And I think that's what we're getting at with this comment around what others can do, what are their successes. We don't all have to reinvent the wheel, and we can certainly learn from one another. The comments on cohorts has been a really helpful one as well. And we found when we did that cohort of students that all worked at TRU, those face-to-face meetings was helpful, extremely helpful, not just for the peer-to-peer peer-to-peer learning, but also for them to ask each other questions, to support one another, to encourage one another, and just that understanding that they weren't in it alone, and it really increased their sense of belongingness. There was another comment here. Start building PA and then linking those PA courses into programs. Um, I'm not sure what PA refers to. Um, Maybe you could type that in or put it in the chat. But one of our goals for the next year is every single course that TRU offers, we will have it'll automatically be eligible to PLAR unless the faculty or school reach out to us and do an exemption form for not being available for PLAR. And then in the next survey, ask student went to another post-second. Thanks, Michaela. Was there Oh, okay. This is such a good point. In the next survey, ask students that went to another post-secondary institution if their credit was that was granted at TRU was accepted. So across Canada, there's no guarantee that if TRU gives you credit or one of the other institutions gives you PLAR credit, that another school will accept it. Now, because we've been doing PLAR for a number of years, at least since 2005, we know there's occasions where institutions won't accept it. So, for example, the UBC School University of British Columbia, one of our biggest in Canada, wasn't accepting PLAR credit in their education program. That was easy. We reached out to them, asked if we could share some information on the rigors of how we assess prior learning, and it's now accepted. But yes, we do encourage students to do that. And I think there was, portfolio assessment. Thank you for that. Yeah. Um, and then assessing training from industry partners. We've been tasked with doubling our assessment of industry partners in the next 2 years. So we will be working on that as well. So somebody else wrote, when guaranteed transfer and articulation agreements are reviewed and updated, they add in CPL in those agreements. I can say, as Michaela shared, or maybe you didn't, so maybe this is new, but about 65 to 70% of the credits we award is through our credit bank, and that's the articulated agreements. So that's a valuable one to learn. So thank you for those responses. One of the things, one of the strategies that we've been developing and working with the Indigenous communities is the the coming together, the group wisdom. When I've been sitting in these sessions at CAPLA, sorry, CAPLA is the Canadian Association of Prior Learning and Assessment. It is at this CALE conference. I've really wished we could get more feedback from those in the audience, because when I look at the collective wisdom in those groups, whether it's online or face to face, I know we've got extensive experience, and we're huge supporters of putting our thoughts together. And Michaela's heard me say a number of times, the group always thinks better than the individual. It's not always the most direct path, and it's sometimes slower, sometimes a lot slower, but the results are much better. So some of our next steps, final words, we're going to continue to refine and improve PLAR to enhance inclusivity and student engagement and to improve persistence rates. We will continue to go with getting feedback directly from the people that use the supports and services, and having that evidence-based information. And that's just been imperative to us, and we're not going to change this. So the question is for us, when are we going to continue this next? So when are we going to run the survey next? Are we going to wait another 5 years, or are we going to do it maybe annually? So those are some of the questions we've been asking. We know that learning from students is ongoing, just as it's ongoing with us. And as more and more institutions enter into the prior learning space, there's more understanding of what it is and how it can support and benefit students. So we know, as somebody said in the chat, that maybe the career development isn't going up because they don't know that it benefits careers. That comment was bang on. And then we want to leave you, before we get into the questions and comments, with a Schwetmic philosophy. So, as we shared in the beginning, we reside on the unceded territory of the Schwetmagulu people, the nation, and they have a philosophy. I'm going to try to pronounce it Panuchimwa, which really means we come together to help one another. And so I want to thank you for contributing in the Mentimeter. And perhaps we could continue that with answering the questions in the chat. So I'm just going to go through the chat now. Going to just switch to the Q&A. Is there any questions in the chat? I'm not seeing any as I go through, or any feedback on what we've been doing.
And we've provided our email address here. So if you think of any questions or would like to discuss anything further later, please feel free to send us an email. You can also view the full statistical analysis of the survey data at that QR code or at the website that's listed on the bottom left there.
You're welcome, Elise. Oh, Madeline's asking if our handbook is available online. We've developed quite a few handbooks, and geez, we have one for how to do assessment work, which is over 100 pages. Somebody said to me yesterday, "Are you guys going to publish that, do a book?" Maybe. But we do have one handbook that if you reach out to us, we'd be happy to share with you. And that's a handbook we created for students that gives them an overview of the different PLAR paths and the initial steps to take. We also have a self-assessment tool that students can do online, and I've had a number of people requesting that. So we're happy to share that. The questions we ask to help students assess where they have enough lived experience to really have acquired that learning that comes from it. And there's also a QR code here that takes you really deep into this research and a lot of the work that Ian, the statistician's been doing for those of you who want to dive in a little bit deeper into the numbers. Just looking to see if there's any more questions or comments. We still have about 8 minutes left, so we're doing good on time. Okay, I don't see any more questions. So before we close out the session, Michaela, I'll just ask you one question. Was there any information that we thought we wouldn't have enough time to cover today that you think would be valuable for the participants to hear?
Nothing comes to mind right away.
Okay. Okay. And I'll just conclude by wrapping up with the 4 kind of themes that came from me from the research that we've done. The credit guarantee, of course, students still want that credit guarantee, and we've hoped we've achieved that with the course. And communicating with students a little bit more clearly about the credit options. And depending on the path they take, it can be 3 credits for a course up to 75 credits or 2.5 years towards their Bachelor of General Studies. So those are kind of the 2 extremes. We have heard loud and clear that PLAR impacts their confidence, and their confidence before they even start PLAR can be quite low. So working hard to help infuse confidence in our communication. We've tried to streamline and make more clear some of the confusion that resides with PLAR. And as I've said, PLAR can be a very confusing process because there's not a lot of people that have done it. And the first time you learn something, it can be confusing. And then the last one would be that loneliness. So how do we create cohorts and that sense of belonging, so both for the students in the course, but also those in the community? And whether it's a mentoring program, whether it's the words of advice from the postcards, how else can we do that? And just one last question. How long do students usually take to finish a portfolio? And how do you incorporate that into advising so they don't take a class they might later receive credit for? So I'll start with the first question there. Depending on the portfolio, and we have asked this question. So if it's a course-based portfolio, students have reported that it can take them 30, 40 hours. And again, helping them see how much time it would take them to do a course, to do the assignments in the course, to do the readings in the course. We have a chart that compares those two. Competency-based portfolios have more depth to them and more information in it. And those can easily be 70, 80, 90 pages. And some students have shared with us on the low end of numbers. One student said it took her 2 weekends. Other students have said it's taken them well over 40, 50, 60 hours. But again, the minimum that they would get for that is 6 credits. The maximum they could get for a competency-based portfolio is 75. So when you start analyzing the time. And the question around incorporating advising so that they don't take a class they might later receive credit for, that's double dipping. We have a variety of processes in place to ensure that students can't receive credit for their learning twice. We're pretty strict on that and also very conscious of it. So for example, in their competency-based portfolio, they can't introduce any learning where they've already received credit for on their transcripts. And we have a couple of strategies to explore that and help double check, triple check that that's not the case, because that was a concern with faculty members, chairs, deans, and the registrar's office. So I think that's going to take us to the end. Thank you so much. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. We hope this information was really helpful for you. And I hope the rest of your conference goes really well, and happy Halloween.
And thank you so much, Susan and Michaela. Attendees, please complete the evaluation attached to this session. Your insight will help us shape future content. And thank you for your participation.
Thanks, Lori. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.